The silence was deafening. Erin froze, her heart pounding as she stared out the grimy window, watching the horde of twisted, shambling figures lurch down the abandoned streets. Their malformed jaws hung open, yellow eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of life. Asterisk, they can smell fear. Asterisk, she thought, gripping the baseball bat in her trembling hands. Asterisk, we have to be silent. We have to be invisible. Asterisk. A soft whimper escaped the child huddled beside her, and Erin's blood ran cold. She clamped a hand over the boy's mouth, silencing him just as a zombie's head snapped in their direction. It let out a guttural moan, its soulless eyes locking onto the boarded-up storefront. Erin held her breath, praying the creature would move on. But it began to shuffle towards the door, its movements jerky and unnatural. She could hear the others joining it, their footsteps echoing like the pounding of her heart. Asterisk, we're trapped. Asterisk. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoed from the back of the store, followed by a scream. Erin whirled around, bat raised, as a figure came barreling towards them. It was a young woman, her clothes torn and bloodied, her eyes wild with terror. Run, she gasped, stumbling past them. They're coming. Erin didn't hesitate. Grabbing the boy's hand, she raced after the stranger, weaving through the aisles as the sound of shattering glass and eerie moans filled the air. They burst out the back door, heart pounding, lungs burning, and ran down the alley, desperate to put as much distance between themselves and the horde as possible. But as they rounded the corner, Erin's blood ran cold. More zombies were shambling towards them, their movements erratic and unpredictable. The boy let out a terrified whimper, and Erin knew they had to act fast. This way, she yelled, pulling him down a narrow side street. They darted between crumbling buildings, the sounds of the undead growing closer with every step. Erin's muscles burned, her lungs aching, but she pushed on, determined to find a safe haven. Suddenly, they came upon a towering chain-link fence, its metal links glinting in the dim light. Erin's heart sank. There was no way they could climb it in time. She spun around, searching for another escape route, when a deafening crash made her jump. A zombie had smashed through a nearby storefront, its twisted body hurtling towards them. Erin swung her bat with all her might, connecting with the creature's skull with a sickening crack. It crumpled to the ground, but more were closing in, their inhuman cries echoing through the alley. Asterisk, we're going to die here. Asterisk, Erin thought, her grip tightening on the bat. Asterisk, this is it. Asterisk. But just as she prepared to make her final stand, a voice rang out, cutting through the chaos. Over here. Quickly. Erin whirled around to see a figure waving from an open doorway, beckoning them to safety. Without hesitation, she grabbed the boy's hand and they ran, the zombies hot on their heels. As they reached the threshold, a strong arm pulled them inside, slamming the door shut just as the undead horde crashed against it. Erin collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She looked up to see a tall, grizzled man staring down at them, his expression unreadable. "Welcome to hell," he said, his voice low and grave. "You're just in time for the end of the world." Asterisk, the terror has only just begun. Asterisk. Erin's heart raced as she stared up at the imposing figure looming over her. His weathered face was set in a grim expression, his eyes scanning the two survivors with a mixture of caution and resignation. "Who are you?" Erin asked, her voice trembling. The man's lips curled into a humorless smile. "The name's Jack, and if you want to live, you'd better start listening to me." He turned and gestured for them to follow, leading the way deeper into the building. Erin glanced at the boy, who clung to her side, his eyes wide with fear. Taking a deep breath, she steeled her nerves and hurried after Jack, her grip tightening on the baseball bat. As they moved through the dimly lit hallway, Erin couldn't help but notice the barricaded doors and boarded-up windows. The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by the distant moans of the undead. Where are we? She whispered, her gaze darting from one shadow to the next. An old police station, Jack replied tersely. We've been using it as a safe house, but our numbers are dwindling. He paused, his expression darkening. That's why I had to bring you in. We need all the help we can get. Aaron's stomach tightened with dread. Help with what? Jack's eyes narrowed. Surviving. The city's overrun, and those things out there are adapting faster than we can keep up. We've lost a lot of good people. He shook his head, a hint of weariness in his voice. I'm not sure how much longer we can hold out. As they reached a set of double doors, Jack paused, his hand on the handle. Listen, kid, he said, turning to Aaron. Out there, it's a whole new world. The rules have changed, and the only thing that matters is staying alive. You're gonna have to make tough choices, ones that might haunt you for the rest of your life. He fixed her with a piercing stare. Can you handle that? Aaron's heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to nod. I have to try. Jack's expression softened, and he placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. Good. Then let's go meet the others. With that, he pushed open the doors, and Aaron found herself in a dimly lit room filled with weary, battle-hardened survivors. Their eyes followed her and the boy as they entered, a mixture of hope and wariness etched on their faces. Aaron swallowed hard, the weight of their situation settling upon her like a heavy cloak. This was no longer a nightmare she could wake up from. This was their new reality. And the fight for survival had only just begun. Aaron's eyes scanned the room, taking in the grim faces of the survivors gathered before her. They huddled together, their weapons close at hand, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and determination. Jack stepped forward, his voice commanding attention. Listen up, everyone. We've got 2 new additions to our group. He gestured to Aaron and the boy. This is Aaron, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, son. The boy shifted nervously, his small voice barely audible. Timmy. Jack nodded. Timmy. They're gonna be joining us, so I want everyone to do their part in keeping them safe. We all know what's out there, and we can't afford any more casualties. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, and Aaron felt a shiver of apprehension run down her spine. These people had clearly been through hell, and she couldn't help but wonder what horrors awaited them. As Jack began to outline their strategy for the coming hours, Aaron's gaze drifted to a young woman sitting in the corner. Her eyes were hollow, her face etched with a grief that Aaron could only imagine. Sensing her stare, the woman looked up, and their eyes met. Aaron felt a sudden pang of empathy, and before she could stop herself, she made her way over and crouched beside the woman. I'm Aaron, she said softly. What's your name? The woman blinked, as if surprised by the gesture. Sarah, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. It's nice to meet you, Sarah, Aaron said, offering a small, reassuring smile. I know this must be incredibly difficult, but I'm glad we're all here together. Sarah stared at her for a moment, then her lips trembled, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. My husband, she murmured, her voice cracking with emotion. He didn't make it. Aaron's heart sank, and without thinking, she reached out and squeezed Sarah's hand. I'm so sorry, she said, her own eyes stinging with tears. Sarah nodded, her gaze turning distant. He sacrificed himself to save me. I don't know how to go on without him. Aaron opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, a deafening crash echoed from the front of the building, followed by the unmistakable sound of shattering glass. The survivors immediately sprang into action, weapons at the ready. They'd breached the perimeter. Jack shouted, his face a mask of grim determination. Everyone, get to your positions. We've got incoming. Aaron's heart raced as she watched the others rush to their stations, their faces set with a mixture of fear and resolve. Squeezing Sarah's hand one last time, she hurried to join them, her grip tightening on the baseball bat. The nightmare was far from over. The air was thick with tension as the survivors scrambled to their positions, weapons at the ready. Erin could hear the eerie moans of the undead growing louder, the sound sending a shiver down her spine. Jack moved to the front of the group, his eyes narrowed as he listened intently. "They're coming from the west entrance," he growled, his fingers tightening around the grip of the shotgun. "All right, everyone, remember your training. We need to hold this position at all costs." Erin glanced around at the determined faces of the other survivors, their knuckles white from gripping their weapons. She could see the fear in their eyes, but there was also a steely resolve that both terrified and inspired her. Suddenly, a thunderous crash echoed through the hallway, and Erin felt her heart leap into her throat. The first wave of zombies had breached the perimeter, their twisted bodies hurtling towards them. "Open fire!" Jack roared, and the room erupted into a cacophony of gunfire and screams. Erin swung her bat with all her might, connecting with the skull of a shambling creature that had lunged towards her. The zombie crumpled to the ground, but she barely had time to catch her breath before another took its place. Around her, the survivors were locked in a desperate struggle, their weapons flashing as they fought to hold their ground. Timmy huddled in the corner, his face a mask of terror, and Erin felt a surge of protectiveness wash over her. I have to keep him safe, she thought, her grip tightening on the bat. As the battle raged on, Erin noticed that the zombies were behaving in strange, unpredictable ways. Some seemed to move with a newfound agility, while others exhibited a coordinated, almost intelligent, approach to their attack. It was as if the creatures were evolving, adapting to the survivors' tactics. Erin's heart sank as she realized the true horror of their situation. These weren't just mindless undead. They were a relentless, evolving threat that would stop at nothing to claim them. A sudden scream drew her attention, and she watched in horror as a young man was dragged away by a horde of zombies, his anguished cries echoing through the room. Erin felt bile rise in her throat, and she had to fight the urge to turn and run. No, she thought, steeling her resolve. Have to stay strong. For Timmy, and for all us asterisk. As the battle wore on, the survivors began to tire, their movements growing sluggish. Erin could see the fear and desperation in their eyes, and she knew they were fighting a losing battle. Just when all seemed lost, a deafening explosion rocked the building, sending debris and bodies flying. Erin ducked, shielding Timmy as the zombies were thrown back by the shockwave. In the chaos, a figure emerged from the smoke, its movements swift and precise. Erin's eyes widened as she recognized the tall, grizzled form of Jack, his shotgun still blazing. "We've got to move," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of the battle. "This place won't hold much longer." Erin nodded, her heart pounding as she grabbed Timmy's hand and followed the other survivors in a desperate dash for survival. The nightmare had only just begun. The survivors raced through the winding corridors of the police station, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence that followed the explosive battle. Erin's lungs burned as she clutched Timmy's hand, her eyes darting from one shadowy recess to the next, searching for any sign of the undead. Jack led the way, his shotgun at the ready, his face a mask of grim determination. "We've got to get to the roof," he shouted over his shoulder. "It's our only chance." Erin could see the desperation in the faces of the other survivors, their weary bodies pushed to the limit. She felt a pang of fear, knowing that their chances of survival were dwindling with every step. As they rounded a corner, a horrific sight greeted them. The hallway was strewn with the bodies of their fallen comrades, their glazed eyes staring lifelessly into the void. Erin fought back a sob, her heart aching for the lives that had been so brutally taken. "Keep moving," Jack barked, his voice laced with a hint of anguish. "We can't afford to mourn them now." Erin tightened her grip on Timmy's hand, silently vowing to do whatever it took to keep the boy safe. They pressed on, the sound of their ragged breathing echoing in the eerie silence. Finally, They reached a set of metal stairs leading up to the roof. Jack turned to the group, his eyes sweeping over their battered, exhausted forms. "All right, listen up," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Once we're up there, we'll be exposed, so we need to move fast and stay alert. Stick close to me, and don't hesitate to use your weapons. Understand?" The survivors nodded, their faces set with a grim determination. Aaron could see the fear in their eyes, but there was also a glimmer of hope, a desperate belief that they might, just maybe, make it out of this nightmare alive. Without another word, Jack led the way up the stairs, his shotgun at the ready. Aaron followed close behind, Timmy's small hand clutched in her own. As they reached the rooftop, a blast of cold air hit their faces, and Aaron felt a momentary sense of relief. But the respite was short-lived. As they stepped out onto the exposed platform, a deafening roar shattered the silence, and Aaron's blood ran cold. A hulking, mutated creature lumbered towards them, its twisted limbs and gaping maw a horrifying sight to behold. "What the hell is that?" someone screamed, their voice thick with terror. Jack's eyes narrowed, and he raised his shotgun. "Doesn't matter," he growled. "We take it down, or we die trying." The survivors braced themselves, their weapons at the ready, as the monstrous creature charged towards them. Aaron felt her heart pounding in her chest, her palms sweating as she tightened her grip on the baseball bat. Asterisk, this is it, asterisk, she thought, her eyes narrowing with determination. Asterisk, we fight, or we asterisk. The battle for survival had reached a new, terrifying level. The air crackled with tension as the survivors faced off against the monstrous creature that loomed before them. Aaron could feel the fear coursing through her veins, but she pushed it down, her grip tightening on the baseball bat. Jack's voice rang out, commanding and unwavering. "Aim for the head. Don't let it get close." The survivors opened fire, their weapons unleashing a barrage of bullets and slugs. The creature let out a bone-chilling roar, its grotesque form shuddering under the onslaught. But to Aaron's horror, it seemed to shrug off the attacks, its movements becoming more erratic and unpredictable. "It's not working," someone cried, their voice laced with panic. Aaron caught a glimpse of Timmy, his eyes wide with terror, and she knew she had to act. Mustering every ounce of courage, she charged forward, her bat swinging with all her might. The weapon connected with the creature's side, sending it staggering. "Now," she yelled. "Hit it again." The other survivors surged forward, their weapons blazing. Aaron dodged the creature's flailing limbs, her heart pounding in her ears. Timmy was by her side, his small body trembling, but she could see the determination in his eyes. Together, they fought, their screams of defiance mingling with the creature's agonized roars. Aaron could feel the strain in her muscles, the sweat beading on her brow, but she refused to give in. Just when it seemed the creature might overwhelm them, a deafening explosion rocked the rooftop. Aaron whirled around to see Jack standing amidst the smoke, his shotgun still smoking. "It's down," he bellowed, his grizzled face tense with relief. "But we've got more incoming." Aaron followed his gaze and her heart sank. A horde of zombies was swarming towards them, their twisted forms shambling across the rooftop. "We can't hold them off," one of the survivors cried, his voice laced with despair. Aaron's mind raced, searching for a way out. She glanced around, her eyes falling on a ladder leading down to the street below. An idea began to form in her mind, and she turned to Timmy. "Listen to me," she said, her voice low and urgent. "I need you to go with the others and get to safety. Can you do that for me?" Timmy's eyes widened, and he shook his head vehemently. "No, I'm not leaving you." Aaron gripped his shoulders, her gaze unwavering. "Timmy, please, I need you to be brave. I'll hold them off as long as I can, but you need to get to safety. Promise me." Tears streamed down the boy's face, but he finally nodded, his small body trembling. Aaron pulled him into a fierce hug, her own eyes stinging with unshed tears. "Go, Now, she urged, pushing him towards the ladder. As Timmy and the other survivors began their descent, Erin turned to face the approaching horde, her bat raised and her heart racing. She knew the risks, but she was determined to give the others a fighting chance. Asterisk, I won't let them down, asterisk, she thought, her jaw set with determination. The zombies were closing in, their eerie moans filling the air. Erin steeled herself, knowing that the final, desperate battle had begun. Erin gripped her bat tightly, her knuckles turning white as the horde of zombies surged towards her. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Asterisk, I have to hold them off, asterisk, she thought, her gaze fixed on the shambling creatures. Asterisk for Timmy and the others, asterisk. With a guttural cry, she swung the bat with all her might, connecting with the skull of the first zombie. The creature crumpled to the ground, but its place was quickly taken by another. Erin fought with a ferocity she didn't know she possessed, her movements swift and precise. She dodged the grasping hands of the undead, her bat a blur as she struck again and again. But the zombies kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Erin could feel her strength beginning to wane, her muscles aching with the strain. Asterisk, I can't keep this up forever, asterisk, she realized, her heart sinking. Asterisk, I'm going to die here, asterisk. Just as she was about to lose hope, a familiar voice rang out. Erin, hang on, we're coming. She whirled around to see Timmy and the other survivors scrambling back up the ladder, their faces etched with determination. Erin's eyes widened as she saw that they were armed, their weapons raised and ready. Fire! Jack bellowed, and the air erupted with a deafening roar of gunfire. Erin ducked as the bullets whizzed past her, striking the zombies with devastating accuracy. One by one, the creatures fell, their twisted bodies crumpling to the ground. Timmy was by her side, his small hands gripping her arm. I couldn't leave you, he said, his voice trembling. Erin felt a surge of pride and protectiveness, and she pulled the boy into a fierce hug. You did good, Timmy, she murmured, her eyes stinging with tears. As the last of the zombies fell, the survivors gathered around Erin, their expressions a mix of relief and awe. How did you? Erin began, her voice trailing off. Jack stepped forward, a grim smile on his face. We saw the horde heading your way and knew we had to act. Couldn't let you have all the fun, now could we? Erin felt a surge of gratitude, and she reached out to grasp the older man's hand. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Jack nodded, his eyes softening. We're in this together, kid. No one gets left behind. As the group began to regroup and assess the damage, Erin felt a sense of cautious optimism. They had survived the onslaught, and she knew that with the strength and determination of their small band of survivors, there was a glimmer of hope. But the journey was far from over. The zombies had proven to be an ever-evolving threat, and Erin knew that they would have to be vigilant, ready to face whatever horrors the undead had in store. With a deep breath, she steeled herself for the challenges that lay ahead, her grip tightening on the baseball bat. The fight for survival was far from over, but she was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. The survivors huddled together on the rooftop, their weary faces etched with a mixture of relief and trepidation. Erin could see the weight of their losses and the uncertainty of their future reflected in their eyes. Jack stood before them, his expression grim but resolute. We can't stay here much longer, he said, his voice low and urgent. That last horde was just the beginning. We need to move, and we need to move fast. Erin glanced around the group, her heart sinking as she took in their battered, exhausted forms. They had fought with every ounce of strength they had, but she knew they couldn't keep up this relentless pace for much longer. Where do we go? One of the survivors asked, her voice trembling. Jack's brow furrowed, his mind clearly racing. There's an old military outpost a few miles north, he said, his eyes narrowing. It's our best chance at finding supplies in a more secure location. Erin felt a glimmer of hope at the prospect, but she couldn't shake the nagging feeling of dread in the pit of her stomach. The zombies had proven to be an ever-evolving threat, and she knew the journey would be anything but easy. "What about the undead?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're not like anything we've seen before. How do we know they won't find us there?" Jack's expression darkened, and he shook his head. "We don't," he admitted. "But we can't stay here and wait for them to pick us off. We have to take the risk." Erin felt a surge of fear, but she knew Jack was right. They couldn't afford to stay put, not with the horde of mutated zombies closing in. Taking a deep breath, she turned to Timmy, who stood beside her, his small face etched with a mixture of fear and determination. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice soft, but resolute. Timmy nodded, his eyes shining with a newfound courage. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steadier than Erin had expected. Erin felt a surge of pride and protectiveness, and she squeezed his hand, silently vowing to do whatever it took to keep him safe. As the group prepared to set out, Erin couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The road ahead would be treacherous, and she knew that not all of them would make it. But she also knew that they had no choice but to press on, to confront the horrors that awaited them. With a deep breath, she fell into step beside the others, her grip tightening on her baseball bat. The zombies may have evolved, but so had they. They were survivors, hardened by the countless battles they had faced, and they would not go down without a fight. As they made their way down the ladder and into the eerie silence of the city streets, Erin felt a chill run down her spine. The nightmare had only just begun, but she was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. Asterisk, this is our fight, asterisk, she thought, her eyes narrowing with determination. Asterisk, and we will win, or we will die trying, asterisk. The end of the world may have arrived, but the fight for survival had only just begun.